Hello and welcome to the ScatterVolt channel, and today we're going to be comparing the $400 Steam Deck versus a $500 budget gaming PC you can build in 2022. So I think this will be a very interesting video because one, I just really want to see if this $400 version of the Steam Deck can outperform the ideal budget gaming PC with a Ryzen 5 5600G that you could typically build in the year 2022 for about $500, and two, what is going to be in store for Ryzen 7000 APUs with integrated RDNA 2 graphics, because the Steam Deck here has its own APU, that being a 4-core 8-threaded one, but has 8 RDNA 2 CUs built in. So if you want more budget PC gaming content on the ScatterVolt channel, then don't subscribe, because I already have enough subscribers. But do like this video, because if you currently own a Ryzen 5 5600G or Ryzen 7 5700G, this video should tick you off. So hopefully liking it will maybe give some notice to AMD to push forward those Ryzen 7000 APUs a bit further up to maybe mid-summer of 2022 rather than late summer. Anyways, we'll get right into the video, but first, a word from our sponsor. If you're looking to activate Windows 10 for cheap on your brand new gaming PC, then don't hesitate to check out VIPSCDKey.com, where you can get inexpensive Windows 10 Home, Pro, or even Windows 11 keys. If you use my discount code VIPScatter, you can get a healthy percentage off your order and get Windows 10 keys for as low as $15 using their website. And activating them only takes a matter of minutes. You just go ahead and take the key that you receive from their website, put it right into the Windows activation settings, and within a few minutes, you should have an activated version of Windows 10 or Windows 11. So if you want to check them out and my discount code, then click the link at the top of the description. Okay, let's quickly go over some disclaimers before we get into the meat of this video. Number one, we're sort of comparing apples to oranges. We're comparing a mobile handheld PC gaming device using RDNA 2 on a Linux-based platform that has its own power constraints because, again, this doesn't have its own built-in power supply, it just has a battery, versus a desktop computer with no power constraints using Windows 10, and it probably has more clock speed and cache advantages and that sort of stuff. So this isn't going to be an exact comparison. It's more just to get a little taste of what the Steam Deck can do versus, again, a budget gaming PC that I would recommend in the year 2022. So with that being said, I'll be benchmarking 6 different games between this and the $500 gaming PC, all at 1280 by 720. Why that and not say 1080p? Well, that's because the Steam Deck here cannot display any higher than 1280 by 800. That's just because of the built-in display here. And for that matter too, it only goes up to 60 Hertz. So if you haven't noticed, a lot of the games that I'll be benchmarking, I'm aiming to get at about 60 frames per second, because any higher than 60 on the Steam Deck and it just won't register. Even on games that are super easy to run, and if you were to turn off VSync and any sort of frame limiter, the Steam Deck, no matter what, will stay below and at 60 frames per second. Getting into the benchmarks, first I want to talk about load times, just for curiosity's sake, and remember, this is the $400 version of the Steam Deck with the 64GB eMMC built-in card. So for all the games, I'm actually storing them on the SD card here. So for example, on Forza Horizon 5, if we were to boot up the game from Steam, on the Steam Deck, it takes about 36 seconds through that SD card, and on the $500 gaming PC, it takes 23 seconds with its 1TB SSD. So a decent enough difference that would put you off, I guess, if you were to boot up the game every single day on the Steam Deck. Then for game level loading time on Resident Evil Village, on the Steam Deck using its SD card, we got about 18 seconds, and on the $500 gaming PC, we got about 7 seconds. So I'd say considerably faster if we're talking about game loading times, rather than just game boot up times. Now let's get into the gaming benchmarks. Starting with Forza Horizon 5 at low settings 1280 by 720, we got 55 frames per second on the Steam Deck and 61 on the $500 gaming PC. And for note, this is rated as playable on the Steam Deck. And I should say there's some different categories for what games are playable and not playable on the Steam Deck. There's verified, playable, unknown, and I believe that's it. So this one is considered playable. It isn't best optimized for the Steam Deck, but it can still run it. Then moving on to Grand Theft Auto 5 at normal settings with FXAA turned on, MSAA at 4X and at 1280 by 720, which is rated as playable on the Steam Deck. We got an FPS range on the benchmark from 45 at the lowest to 60 at the highest, versus on the $500 gaming PC, we got right on at 40.5 frames per second on average. So a pretty decisive win, I'd say, for the Steam Deck, especially if you're in a setting where it isn't going to be completely totaling your FPS count, which in that case, you're going to get an easy 60. Then on Resident Evil Village, which is listed as unknown on the Steam Deck's compatibility settings, at prioritized graphics settings, 1280 by 720, we got a range of 52 to 60 frames per second on the Steam Deck and 43.2 on the $500 gaming PC with integrated graphics. That is, for a game that isn't technically verified on the Steam Deck, that is impressive versus our budget gaming PC. Now next up, I went ahead and benchmarked Crysis Remastered at 720p just for the memes, and at medium settings, SMAA1TX, we got right on at 60 frames per second on the Steam Deck, and on the $500 gaming PC, we got about 50. That's kind of big, especially for Crysis. Then going on to Elden Ring. At low settings, 720p, we got an FPS range on the Steam Deck anywhere from 50 to 58 frames per second, and for the $500 gaming PC, we got bang on at 60 frames per second. And this is listed as a verified game on the Steam Deck. It should run well on it. And then lastly, on Apex Legends, which I think is maybe a little bit unfair to the Steam Deck since it's pretty well optimized for it. Pretty much every graphical setting in that game is maxed out other than the VRAM, which is listed at 6 gigabytes on the Steam Deck, which I did the same for the $500 gaming PC. 60 right on for the Steam Deck, and for the $500 gaming PC, 49. So to close out the video, again, this is an apples to oranges comparison. We're comparing a handheld mobile PC gaming device with power constraints on a Linux-based platform to a regular desktop computer with integrated Vega graphics running on Windows 10 with no power constraints. So this isn't going to be an exact comparison by any means, but if there's any indication that RDNA 2 integrated graphics will be better than we think, this should be a good sign. And remember, the Steam Deck is running at 25 watts or below while gaming, which is just crazy. So imagine that, but on a desktop platform, on a desktop CPU with Ryzen 7000 and RDNA 2 integrated graphics. Now, if these results would hold, say for 1920 by 1080, I'm kind of unsure, but again, the Steam Deck can't go at 1080p, so I'm just keeping the results to 720p for this comparison. But at the moment, at 720p, the Steam Deck is probably the faster gaming device, even though its game library is not as big as what a Windows 10 computer could be. So that is it for today's video, and if you enjoyed it, give it a like, please. Thank you, much appreciated. And if you like my videos, then do consider subscribing to the ScatterVolt channel. And with all that said, thank you so much for watching, and this is the ScatterVolt channel, signing out.